Hi, everybody. This is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome back to our kind of special edition of our Middle East update. It is the 23rd of October, and we're going to look back on what's transpired over the last couple weeks, as well as what's happening today and what's right around the corner. But let me start with a reminder that there is a PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this presentation, and it's vital that you get that and make your way through that, whether you do it at the same time as this recording or at a later time. There's always more information and quite a few photos on this. And as you know, that old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you just need to take it all in. Now, usually I try to keep these updates between the 10 and 15 mark. No telling how long this will be. My apologies for that, but I think it's too important than to just try to keep it short. So keep that in mind as we make our way through this. Now, I want to start with an opening statement. I want to make it very clear that the war in Israel hasn't really started yet. The war will start when the Israeli ground maneuvers make their way into Gaza. That will be a domino that are going to possibly trigger the involvement of Hezbollah. If that's the case and Hezbollah bites, then we're really looking at the escalation of something that could easily turn into World War III. And so there'll be thousands of rockets that are fired into Israel, precision strike rockets or threats from Israel that you would wish this would be the Second Lebanese War if you fire one rocket into Israel. So just keep this in mind, that the war, it's impending. It could happen before this even gets uploaded, but it hasn't started. And by the way, this is not the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war. It is the things that are happening right now. It's one of the many wars of Israel, no doubt about it. But this is not the prophetic war of Ezekiel 38 and 39. We'll talk about that more later. In fact, if you're local, we're actually starting our old-fashioned Bible study tomorrow night, and we're going to tackle just that subject, Ezekiel 38 and 39. You're more than welcome to join us, but again, just some opening statements. And the truth is that as Israel waits on the border with this army sort of sequestered throughout the border of Gaza, the Israelis are desperate for some kind of action. The more videos that are released of the atrocities of the demonic forces of Hamas is creating this sense of we've got to do something now. And so we'll talk a little bit later on what those issues might be that are keeping Israel from just a wholehearted invasion at this minute, because I do believe that invasion is coming. Now, in our updates, we always start with our news bites. And so just some random sort of things as we make it through. We know that the Israelis have named this war Iron Swords, and Hamas is referring this now to the Al-Aqsa flood, hoping that they're not going to stand alone, but by using that term Al-Aqsa, that every Arab Muslim will kind of rise up in the day and fight the occupier, Israel. So the Al-Aqsa flood and Iron Swords. Now, again, we're seeing, because of the rise of social media and because everybody's got a camera somewhere, And because of all the disinformation, I know it's been about a week, but we're still getting more and more and more and more and more recordings. And did Israel bomb a hospital? Why would they do that? And then on the other side, no, it wasn't Israel. It was actually the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, failed attempt, back and forth. But the old adage that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth gets out of bed is true. And then plus, keep in mind, the lie will never be forgotten. So social media, remember, some people were demanding photographic evidence to believe that Hamas actually murdered babies. And there's too much available out there now. But nobody in those circles needed any evidence before accusing Israel of bombing a hospital. And the bottom line is now all that evidence come forth, but too little, too late. People still believe the lie. And there are embassies around the world, protest movements, hundreds of thousands of people in the streets, the rise of anti-Semitism, astronomical. Why? Because Israel's bombing hospitals. It is not true. It is a lie. But we live in the age of deception, and people choose to believe the lie. Well, a couple days ago, the IDF announced that they're going to evacuate Kiryat Shimona, home of about 24,000 residents on the northern border. And again, with this evacuation, there's now over 120,000 residents from the south and the north that have been displaced. Let that sink in. 120,000 residents that have been displaced north on the Lebanese border, and of course, south on the border of Gaza. Now, Netanyahu and Israel in this situation, it's a must. They must win. They must do what they've set out to do. They must eradicate and end Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. But there's something in this for Biden as well. Make no mistake about it. Almost everything for Biden hinges on this war. He is anxious over Israel's conduct, how Israel responds to this massacre. It's going to impact his re-election campaign and really the regional vision of the Middle East through American lenses. Make no mistake, there's political advantages to this. And unfortunately, this narrative, in my opinion, is being shaped by our current administration. I welcome and enjoyed and applauded the fact that Biden went to Israel in the midst of all that was taking place. But Israel needs to do what Israel needs to do, and they don't need America's approval to do it. They may need America's military aid to help, but Biden shouldn't be orchestrating this scene. That's my humble opinion. And then finally, the anti-Israel spirit has taken a hold of many cities, campuses, and institutions throughout the United States. It's metastasized. It's a fast-growing movement which is causing turmoil, anxiety, fear, not just among Jewish communities, but churches, communities. Friends in Israel have said to me, if it can happen here, don't be stupid. It can happen in your neck of the woods as well. So this is the world we are currently living in. Now, some of our main articles. we're going to hear about the innocent Palestinians. We're going to hear about the need of humanitarian aid. We're going to hear these statements. Not all Palestinians are members of Hamas. A couple things that I want to talk about as far as Hamas versus the peaceful side of the Palestinian Authority, the Fatah, right? Keep in mind, the West Bank Palestinians support Hamas. Okay? They want Hamas. They are celebrating. They're not condemning, they're celebrating. They are actually calling for the resignation of Abbas. The people want to take him down. And who will they put in place of Fatah, the Palestinian Authority? Hamas. Recent polls have indicated that this terror war, that 57% of the Gazans have expressed publicly positive opinions about Hamas. Hamas's leader, Ismail Haniyeh, would defeat the Palestinian Authority president, Mahmoud Abbas, 56% to 33%. It would be a landslide victory for Hamas if there were elections. So when you hear Biden say that the vast majority of Palestinians are not Hamas, and Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinian people, Palestinian Media Watch basically says, we don't know where he's getting this information, but he's clearly not talking to the Palestinians. Upward to 80% of Palestinians, both in Gaza and in the West Bank, cheer on Hamas. Let that one sink in. And then we have this Hamas versus the Palestinian Authority. And for those that think there's a moral difference between the two, keep in mind that the young lions, I hate it that they stole that term, the lion's den in Jenin and in the West Bank, the student unions there are all in favor of Hamas. They are cheering the massacres that take place. Their statement is Allah's roaring from the lion's den. There's photos here. So where are the next leaders of Hamas coming from? They're not coming from the so-called peaceful side. The ones that we're willing we're hearing that, well, we should put the Palestinian Authority, once we get rid of Hamas and Gaza, let them be in charge. No. There's no difference. Please. And then we have Hamas Cells. And Europe's waking up. The Chancellor of Germany just returned home from his visit to Israel. And what he saw, what Hamas did to civilians, his response in seeing migrants openly supporting in his country Hamas, the chancellor said, quote, "It's time to start large-scale deportations." How about Hamas here in the United States? Israel keeps sounding the alarm. They keep saying, you need to hear the warning. To those that have ears to hear, listen, you're next. Here in the U.S., with our open borders, sleeper cells, I know it sounds conspiracy stuff, but let's not have our heads stuck in the ground. Here in the United States, with our open borders, etc., do not think what happened on October 7th cannot be replayed in your own backyard, in your own communities. And then the black flag, the meaning of the black flag. It's been raised over the largest mosque in Iran. Again, article too long, that's why you need to grab the PDF PowerPoint, but without a doubt, this black flag that now flies atop of the largest mosque in Iran, without a doubt, it's not a good sign. but it symbolizes that the great Middle East war is here. Whether it's waiting for the 12th Imam or the Mahdi or whatever the case may be, the reality is that it's all coming to a head. And I'm not just talking about biblical eschatology, I'm talking about Islamic eschatology. The reestablish of the Islamic Caliphate. That's what's happening. The Islamic Mahdi, where the Muslims will carry the black banner as they move forward to establish his reign. Once again, excuse me. I'm not making this stuff up. This is the world in which we're living in today. It appears that, excuse the phrase, all hell, I think it's already broken loose, but continues to knock over major dominoes that are going to have worldwide significance, events that are horrifying for us to even think about. And then there's an article here that's simply called "We Got a Hug." Let me just take the time to read it. It sums up Biden's visit. Biden says Israel must not give Hezbollah a preemptive blow. It's forbidden for Israel to occupy the Gaza Strip. We're warned against harming civilians. Biden forced the introduction of the humanitarian aid to loosen the pressure of the blockade. Who knows where that humanitarian aid is actually going, right? The U.S. is going to give $100 million in aid to the Strip. $6 billion was already given to Iran and was not frozen in the course of all these events. It goes on and on. Biden has reiterated his belief in the two-state solution. On the other hand, Israel received a generous package, military aid, which will deepen their dependence upon America. 2 aircraft carriers are there. One more is on its way with this convoy. Delta forces are on the ground in Israel. The cooperation between the U.S. and Israel seems to have been deepened, but as we talked about, we don't want the American administration to run the narrative. And in the middle of all of this, Israel gets a hug. You know, the package that Biden is floating through Congress right now, whether it's $300 billion or whatever, it seems like monopoly money to me. The majority of it is not going to Israel. It's a way to support both Taiwan and the Ukraine. Israel only gets less than a third of whatever that package may be. And so in brief, and this is from your everyday Israelis, okay? I'm not advocating that it's 100% this way, but in brief, Biden blocked any way to an unequivocal Israeli victory picture, something that would make it clear to all of their enemies of the weakness of their stance. And again, that Israel does not need to be dependent on any others. A historic visit indeed, but he made an important contribution to tipping the balance of power in the region against us and for the two-state solution. No one said anything about the fact the other day that with this package, the $6 billion, that the nuclear agreement, the restrictions of the ballistic missile program in Iran had expired. And the question is that do we front load that again and put those restrictions on? No. Symbolically, nothing was spoken. Well, a couple more things, as I said. I know this is a bit more lengthy than our updates in the past. Palestinian Christians, we're going to hear about this. Tragically, There are many innocent Palestinians that are going to suffer terribly in the days to come, men, women, children. The suffering of innocent victims of terror, are the same in the eyes of God, whether they're Israeli or Palestinians. We grieve for the people of Gaza, as especially brothers and sisters in the Lord. The sufferings that's going to take place are going to be deep, and the losses are going to be massive. And tragically, this is just the beginning of the story. But Israel has no moral choice, that it has to completely remove Hamas from the power that it has and how it's crippled Gaza itself. And so in light of all this, we're being reminded, and it's going to come across our social media platforms, we're going to be reminded of the atrocities of October 7th. So as Christians, please speak up on behalf of the victims of these terrorist attacks. Rebuke the murderous terrorists by name. Present a truthful picture to the world. We cannot partner with falsehoods, and double standards are libels. Romans 13 says when God puts a government in place, that the job of the authorities is to root out and destroy evildoers. This must take place. We just read about some of the body cameras of some of the terrorists. And recently, just the other day, I saw that there were top secret Hamas documents that revealed that the terror group had deliberately planned to attack Israeli children in elementary schools, a youth center, an Israeli community close to the Gaza Strip. The person went on and said, these are first responders. We saw murdered babies. But in the pockets of some of the Hamas terrorists who perpetuated these massacres were found directives for manufacturing chemical weapons. It's apparent that Hamas was going to use chemical weapons to attack Israeli civilians. It doesn't end there. This is a demonic force. A demonic force. When you don't want to know, you don't want to see, you don't want to hear about the atrocities that took place. That animals don't do this. And so without going into detail, let me simply say, this was not just a Hamas attack. This was a demonic attack as well. And we need to stand against that evil and root out. Allow Israel to root out that evil. And then I'll end with this, and there's some pictures that I'll talk about. And so again, speculation. Standing back, looking, scratching one's head and wondering, would Israel ever consider using nuclear weapons? It's interesting to read between the lines. That can be dangerous. So again, speculation. But Bibi Netanyahu, in warning Hezbollah and Lebanon, because that's the real power. Keep in mind, Hamas is probably 10% of the weaponry of Hamas. That's what they have in comparison to what's on Israel's northern borders. Hezbollah. So Bibi said, if Hezbollah decides to enter the war, the IDF will hit it with such strength that it will long for the second Lebanese war. It will be hit with a force it cannot even imagine, with devastating consequences for both the terror group and Lebanon, which hosts it. Again, through Russian channels, Israel has said, if Lebanon, Hezbollah attacks, we will adopt a scorched earth policy. Other than using a nuclear weapon, how could Israel produce such an outcome? These are the days we're living in. And just as a reminder on these slides, please share this with your friends, but never forget. And there's a picture of a 3-year-old whose name just happens to be Kfir, and he was kidnapped by Hamas, and we wonder his condition and what's going on. Don't forget. And in Tel Aviv, a Shabbat table was set up with over 1,400 chairs of the missing. And again, now these chairs, the picture I gave you is not even updated. Now they have pictures in each one of these chairs of those that are abducted, kidnapped, probably in the tunnels of Hamas. That was just Saturday, this picture. And then frightening, sad, horrifying, the kibbutz near Gaza, kibbutz Nir Oz. The population sign says in 1007 there were 450 members. As of the 8th of this month, 190. What happened to the others? You know. Butchered and slaughtered by Hamas. And then a couple more pictures. We have, again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. We have the tunnels with rockets coming out of the Palestinian side with all of the families as human shields. And on the other side, we have the Israeli families hiding in bunkers and an Israeli soldier standing alone. Human shields. Trusted sources. Again, if you're not on Telegram, you're missing out. Get on Telegram and make sure you get to our friend Amir Safate. Again, I don't even watch any other news these days. Pray for Amir, his ministry. Behold Israel. It's my most trusted source. And then a Jewish journalist that I think the world of, Carolyn Glick. Make sure you check out her podcast. Straight shooter, Israeli, not a believer, but again, a resource that I've come to be very grateful for. And Joel Rosenberg, All Israel News, you should get that as well. So there's some sources that are there. And then I've given you a prayer list. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the victims of terror on both sides. Pray for the leadership. Pray for the leadership of not just Israel, but the U.S. as well. Pray for the innocents. And pray for the IDF. And pray, pray, and pray. And then for people that are looking to say, how can I help? We're looking into a variety of things right now. Ministry to Israel is always my go-to. Trusted. Michael Utterback, one of my heroes. Of course, Holy Ground, 100% of whatever you give for Israel support to Holy Ground goes to Israel, 100%. And so, again, I've given you some resources there. And then a couple other announcements. If Israel is receiving, if they're open, we are going. And that's our Revealing Israel tour, February 21st through March 1st. That trip is actually filling up. And again, if for some reason it doesn't go because we're not allowed to go in, all monies and deposits will be returned. So there's no fear of loss. But you need to sign up if this is something that you want to be a part of. You need to sign up and get your deposits to make sure you reserve your seat. And then to all the locals up here in northern Idaho, we want to bring Israel to northern Idaho. Aaron Shust and Joshua Aaron, amazing musicians. We're going to host a night of worship and prayer at the Anthem Hayden campus. It will be December 15th at 6:30, and tickets will go on sale soon. This is something you want to circle your calendars if you're up here. You don't want to miss it. You want to stand to support, and you are going to be immensely blessed with both of these guys in a night of worship. So that's what we have for you this day. Usually I do these once a week, but because of the situations that we're in, I could be doing this more often than that. But I kind of wanted to get you all caught up, and so hopefully the ones that come after this will be a little shorter in durations. But with that, God bless you. Stand for Israel. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Shalom.